Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Dubitandum. It's Commodore and I, and today's episode is going to be about comedy and honesty. So I got to thinking about this, and I don't know why. I just remember when Commodore and I were brainstorming about content to put on the website, something that kind of came to me was the idea that there is a link, and at the time I didn't know what it would be or if it was there or not. It just seemed to me like there's some kind of link between honesty and comedy.
Yep.
And so we took some time to think about it, and we're going to share with you all our results. Now, in the process of trying to figure out what to say and how to say it, a lot of research was done, and Commodore was just talking to me about something relating to research for these topics. Do you want to take that away?
Yeah, it's like I don't come from a whole lot of philosophical background as much as I honestly really enjoy this stuff. I just haven't put the time in to be completely clear. But on specific topics, it's not always easy to find where to pull information from.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, there's like YouTube and stuff. That stuff is fantastic for finding a million videos on it. But that's also the daunting task of figuring out which video is worth your time.
Yeah.
And so...
You know, now that you talk about that, I think we should have a recommended readings or recommended viewings.
Yes. Yeah, at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you that, because that would like show you like, oh, here's the things I'm pulling from.
Yeah.
And then it would allow listeners to go, hey, have you guys thought about checking out this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think that would be great for the whole idea that we're all trying to grow and
learn together. Yeah. So, I mean, off the top of my head, some places I always turn to for good content. There is a podcast called The Partially Examined Life. They were some of the inspiration for me wanting to eventually start a project kind of like this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think you've mentioned it before.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
I'll have to start listening to them.
Brilliant. Brilliant guys. They do really good philosophical analysis. It's pretty high level in some of them. Like they don't back down from tackling some very heavy philosophical works. So it's for people who really like philosophy, but they do it in a way that's really laid back and accessible.
Oh, that's good.
There's a YouTube. I told you about this guy, Wes Cecil.
Yeah. I love his stuff. Yeah. What is it, Wes?
Wes, Wes, Cecil.
Yeah.
I think it's Cecil.
I think it's
Cicil.
Yeah. He's honestly, I've listened to a good amount of his work, or his stuff on it, and it's very seminar. I would argue that it probably actually is a seminar.
I think so. I think it was some public lectures that he did.
They're really good. They really are eye-opening.
Yeah. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy Online. It's essentially a professionally managed wiki of philosophy, as far as I've been able to ascertain.
Wow. It's pretty dense.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really, really dense, and the writing is hit or miss based on who wrote the article. Not all of them are written very well. And even the ones that are written well might not be very accessible, but it is a good resource.
It's very, at least from the one that I've read.
Yeah.
I don't have a good background like Brandon there, but it seems very technical.
It is. I mean, I have to reread a lot of it.
Yeah,
just because
I have to read it out loud and then reword it.
Yeah, but then again, I'm really stupid.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I'm equally at least as stupid. I think there's one, just as the one little tidbit. There's I think PBS puts up that one called Crash Course.
Yeah, Crash Course. Yeah,
that's a great one, especially for people who don't know a whole lot. I've jumped into a bunch of theirs. In fact, I listened to some for this and some for another one we're going to be doing soon. So, yeah, they it's really quick, and the way he speaks is great, and he is. I don't know. It's just
good
clear
lectures.
And it's straightforward. I would argue that it may be a little fast.
A little bit, but
just a little.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's good stuff.
All right. And there's also Dubitandum. That's a website you can
I've
go
heard
to.
of that one.
Yeah.
I think you've mentioned that one before.
I might have.
Yeah.
They're both really dumb, though. So.
Those guys, I would argue that they're not very educated.
No, stupid. Very stupid.
Really bad opinions of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ugly.
Definitely. Oh, my God.
Okay, so on that note, I guess let's go ahead and dive in to the content
Yes, the whole
here.
thing.
So comedy and honesty. So when we talk about comedy in this, we're not just talking about formal comedy. So that would be things like stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
So you've got professional comedians like Patton Oswalt, Sarah Silverman, the now disgraced Louis C.K., Jon Stewart, people like that.
Yeah.
And really even people who, stand-up comedians who really don't have a stand-up show. So people like John Oliver, it's a comedian who's got a news show.
Yeah.
So that's kind of formal comedy.
That's the vein of people that are. Those guys have worked on those. Those are lined up.
Yeah.
They've got a whole script that they
They're
make.
paid.
Yeah, then they're paid. Definitely big. It's a big deal.
People go to a place and pay to hear
Yeah.
those people tell jokes. Like people watch Sarah Silverman's show or go to her stand-up specials and pay to hear her tell jokes.
So you're saying that our assessment of comedy is more than that. It's not going to just
Yes.
take in that, because I would argue that's part of it, of course.
Oh yeah,
But it's also going to be like other
informal.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got people who are funny in general.
Yeah.
In your circle of friends, you can always think about the people who are funny. Maybe you are the funny person
Yeah.
in your circle of friends.
And God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you. We need more of you. And if you're not, that's okay. Your friends will keep pretending to like you.
Yeah.
But no, so there's funniness in general. So
Yeah.
you've got the interpersonal funny, the interpersonal comedy of the class clown when you're young and in school, or just interpersonal relationships where you can have two people who just sit in a room and make each other laugh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
comedy is right there in that room.
I would argue that we're almost talking about the vein of like things that cause that, like,
Yeah.
that feeling of what causes laughter, what
Yeah.
causes that intro retrospective.
I'm
whatever.
going to use a fun philosophy term. It's a shorthand.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about that, this idea of comedy in and of itself, what you can say is comedy qua comedy, QUA.
Okay.
So comedy qua comedy is just, we're discussing the principle of comedy, not its instantiation in this or that person or venue or what have you.
Yeah.
There's also what I like to call anonymous public comedy. There's also what I call public or mass comedy. So if you go to a website like Reddit, or even to a lesser extent, I would argue YouTube, but really I found this on Reddit. Reddit, of course, has a user base in the millions, and they are essentially completely anonymous. So you're dealing with the crowd in its almost purest form.
Yes.
But if you go through Reddit comments, it's not long before you'll find something that's hilarious. So there's a lot of funny people out there and a lot of really witty comedic interaction on Reddit. And if you scroll past the raving lunacy parts, even the comment sections in YouTube.
Yeah.
You've got memes that are shared online. A lot of memes are unfunny garbage, but
It's true.
But you've got some memes that are brilliant, and they just incisively key in on one or two very funny things, and they hit it right on the head. You've got people who are funny at the office place. You and I work with some funny people.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, but
Yeah, me neither. I'm really bad at comedy and stupid. But I got to thinking about something. In general, comedy needs to be kind of dark. It needs to be kind of, I'll put it this way, happy comedy is preposterous. If you laugh at happy comedy, I don't know what to make of you. If someone can get on stage and say, boy, you know what, yesterday I had a great day, and this morning I had a really great morning too, everybody, and you laugh at that, I don't know what to make of you.
yeah.
The point of the simple matter of fact is that mundane life, especially when it's happy, isn't funny. It's not to say it's bad.
No, of
It's
course not.
just not funny.
Yeah. It doesn't have a internal humor. It's
Yeah.
there's this certain like relationship with wrongness
Yes.
that comedy kind of has, and not wrongness is like in a righteous and wrong fashion, but like
Yes.
things that are just like this doesn't add up or this doesn't line up.
Yes.
In-
Like
in
kind of
a-
a rupture with
Yeah,
ordinary sense.
yeah,
So I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, well, what are the major themes in comedy? And I've watched a lot of stand-up specials. I've been described as funny. I don't like to self-identify as funny. For some reason, that feels weird. I've
Yeah.
been described as funny. And I got to thinking about what do I and the people I know who I think are funny, professionally and not professionally, what do they joke about? And really, the things that came to mind are you've got morbid comedy, so people who crack jokes and laugh about death and suffering and disease and misery.
I would argue that's actually one of Brandon's strong suits when it comes to jokes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try to be really sad.
Yeah, he really like makes it sad and gross or like just absurdity.
Absurd-
That's
that-
a
that
that's
is
a
one.
strong
Yeah.
quality of comedy.
Yeah.
or at least in a lot of comedy.
But I think, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here.
Sorry.
When absurdist humor does happen,
Yeah,
you'll notice that it's usually got some darkness to it. So like
Yeah.
it's never like, oh, I was walking down the road and then reality split in half and someone came out and said, "Nice haircut, buddy," and then they walked away. Like, that's
yeah, that
not
doesn't
funny,
No,
yeah.
it's just like
yeah.
okay.
Now something funnier would be like, oh, I was walking down the road and reality split in half and a guy stepped out and he said, "Hey, nice haircut, buddy." And then my hair split in half, and another me popped out and said, "Nice buddy, pal." And then he split in half, and then he said, "I'm not your pal, friend." Now that I'm
it's
not-
getting like it's almost because it just can't. You can't slow down.
Yeah.
It's so much to just imagine.
it's a preposterous insult to rationality.
Yeah,
But
just
so
absurd.
backing up a little bit, yeah, you've got morbid comedy, joking about death and pain.
Yeah.
You've got cynical comedy, which is just mocking ordinary things as stupid or being sarcastic and critical of things.
And it's also got the branch of like harmful comedy is usually branched off of that.
Yes.
Where it's there's like a theory. I watched something on this. There's this thing called superiority theory, and that's a theory of comedy that says that it's to show the difference between that and you, or so that
Yeah.
would be like blonde jokes and those kind
Yeah.
of more harmful jokes. So that's to say that X is superior to Y because of this joke.
So this is also kind of drifting off from what I was going to say next, but I think it's important to talk about, and it's perfect in relation to what you just said. I think that pursuant to the analysis of comedy as necessarily being a little bit dark and morbid, I think it's interesting when you realize that so mean jokes, for example,
Yeah.
like cynical, sarcastic jokes, stop being funny if the person making let me back up. Those sorts of jokes are only funny if you know that they are meant in a teasing way.
Yeah.
So things like blonde jokes,
Of
or
course.
or like when Commodore and I joke about ourselves being stupid, which we are very stupid.
Oh yeah, let me tell you.
No, so when we joke about stuff like, "Oh, I'm really dumb,"
Yeah.
if we meant that, it's not funny.
No.
People want to offer help,
Yeah.
or try to disagree with you and say, "Well, no, you're not stupid. You're good. You're smart. You're great.
Yeah.
You're this or that." So I think that it's interesting, and I think it kind of speaks to what we're building to. That mean comedy doesn't work if it's done in a mean spirit.
Yeah, it's like it's almost the intention becomes part of the factor of
Yes.
what makes it funny, and that's my opinion. Some people can think and believe those mean things,
Yeah.
and they think it's hilarious for some reason.
Yeah, but usually if they
But,
speak up and
yeah.
they start making jokes, you can tell that there's some real spite in what they're not just teasing. They literally mean these things. And I think those people very quickly and rightfully become ostracized.
Yeah,
So say you've got someone who's making, and I don't like blonde jokes because most of them aren't funny,
yeah,
but say you've got someone who's making blonde jokes. maybe they have someone there who's with them who's blonde and they're teasing them, but the person with blonde hair is in on the joke and they're kind of playing along, everyone's laughing and having a good time. And then you get someone who, for whatever dumb reason, really does have a grudge against blonde people. And if they start making those jokes and that actual bitterness seeps out, people start backing away from that person.
You can almost, I hope I'm true in this, but I would argue that you can usually feel the difference. You know, you can
Yes.
know the difference between like this person's playing around and this person is literally making this joke because it's not only funny to some people, but they're trying to cause harm.
Yeah, they're trying to cause harm. They
Like-
literally think that they're saying a true thing versus saying a silly joke.
Yeah.
And you can practically hear the audible clunk in reality as it shifts gears and people go from, oh, haha, we're all teasing each other and we're all in this together, to, ooh, wait, that guy's an asshole, though.
It's like everybody's brain goes, well, what?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I also get to thinking, about comedy and darkness. Look at some of the kind of stock comedy routines that you'll see in every comedy club or every comedy special or every hilarious story. They usually come down to bad things that have happened, either to the person telling the story or to others. Bad things I've personally done. A funny story about what an asshole I am, basically. Mocking and sarcastic observations. So I think people like Patton Oswalt are good at absurdist humor, but they also make really good mocking observations. And then you've got angry rants, so kind of like Louis C.K. Not Louis C.K., I'm sorry. I can't think of the comedian's name right now.
I'm
Louis
terrible with
Black.
names. Oh,
Louis Black.
Louis Black.
Yeah, he does angry rant comedy. George Carlin did that too.
I'm terrible with names, but I
Yeah.
do know some of those and
Yeah.
what you mean.
So, and now there are other types of comedy. You've got just pure silliness. You've got slapstick. You've got like weird lunatic humor. But honestly, a lot of times it comes down to this kind of dark subtone. And I think that subtone, the context of we're laughing about how weird and screwed up reality is, that's where comedy ties in with honesty, I think. And so
Yeah.
hear me out, and I want to hear your thoughts on
Okay.
this. So, as far as honesty goes, honesty is not synonymous, I think, with accuracy. So, if I honestly think it's sunny outside, but I'm in a room with no windows, and it turns out that it's raining and overcast, but you come to me and say, what's the weather like? And I say, oh, it's sunny. I'm still being honest even though I'm wrong. So the fact that if you propositionalize what I'm saying, which is the proposition would be something like, it is the case that it is sunny outside, when in fact that proposition's false, and it is the case that it is raining outside, I'm still being honest even though I propositionalized something that turns out to not be accurate. I don't think anyone would say that I wasn't being honest just because I was wrong. Same thing if I tell you a lie. So let's say that you ask me a question, I lie to you, and then later on in the day, someone asks you the same question. So for some reason, let's say that you don't know what the price of gas right now is.
Okay.
And you ask me, and I say, oh, it's $2 even per gallon. And then you go off down the street, trusting me, like an idiot. And so you go off down the street, and someone else comes up to you and says, hey, what's the cost of gas right now? And you say, oh, it's $2 even. And in that instance, I think you'd be hard pressed to make an argument that you are being dishonest. You're wrong.
Yeah.
And I was being dishonest and lying to you. But you're being honest in telling what you think to be the truth, which to me gets at the core idea of what honesty is.
Yeah.
I think honesty is a sincere relationship with existence. So
Okay.
let me unpack that a little bit, because that, it kind of sounds like it's saying nothing. But so a sincere relationship with existence, or another way to put it is self towards existence in a sincere way. It means a willingness to tell the truth. So an honest person might not know what the truth is, or they might be misled about what the truth is. But the fact is, their intention, their desire is to tell the truth.
Yeah.
A willingness to follow evidence where it leads. So, if you've got two people in a room and they both believe some proposition X, and you show them evidence that X is in fact false, I think the person in the room who has a more honest spirit, so to speak, they'll be interested in hearing your argument for why proposition X is false, or seeing the evidence. Honesty is a commitment to changing your mind when it turns out you're wrong. And so you also derivatively have to be committed to finding out if you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a very strong element of dishonesty in the character of people who want nothing to do with any kind of challenge to what they believe to be true. Doesn't mean that they're terrible people, that they're lying. It just means that their approach to reality has been infected by a measure of dishonesty.
Yeah.
And it's self-honesty. So honesty is accurate self-assessment. So, like, admitting, yeah, there's a lot I don't know. I need to learn more. And it also, I think, is being humble about the beliefs and attitudes you have, acknowledging that you're a finite being with finite cognitive faculties and perceptual capacities. You might be wrong. You can only know so much, per se. So that, I think, is honesty. Honesty is a fundamental way that you comport yourself towards reality, where you're trying to be as sincere with existence as you can possibly be, regardless of whether it's pleasurable or not. And so that kind of comes back to comedy, right? So backing up to that dark theme in comedy, you've got a lot of jokes about crime, death, abuse, anger, the pointlessness of existence, embarrassment. People tell embarrassing stories for comedy all the time. Yeah. And essentially what you're doing is honestly relaying a time that reality got one up on you and you looked a fool. So the embarrassment is a strong theme in comedy, and that's a brutally honest take on yourself. You got to be really honest with yourself to say, boy, I looked like a jackass then. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Yeah, it has that sense of being real.
Exactly. Yes.
It was like what I'm taking from what you're pointing out, and the way I see honesty is honesty does not require truth. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be true. You can be honest and be wrong and be false, but the commitment to truth is what I'm seeing.
Yes.
What I'm understanding. I view it the same way.
Yeah.
And when you do, comedy can have a relationship with that, especially when used to show negative things like you did this wrong or that wrong, and it just is this when things didn't work out right, or you whatever reason, it can be funny because it can be like not what you expected, and that can create humor. It also is trying to relate to something that's real that that happened. It's not you muddying up things.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's a reason that it's hard for someone who is debilitatingly narcissistic to be funny, because part of sharing funny stories among human beings usually involves swapping embarrassing stories.
Yeah, because I think a narcissistic person could do comedy, but it would be more from that superiority venue instead of an honest.
And that only lasts for so long before it gets old.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'll save that one for later. But yeah, I agree with you. If it comes across that someone is telling jokes just to try to feel better about themselves, or through that superiority kind of approach.
Yeah. To establish that identity. It isn't about the joke anymore. It's more about that would be, I would consider that to be inappropriate.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a word for people like that, and it's douchebag.
Yeah, asshole.
Jerk, jackass.
I wouldn't call that person honest.
Yeah, no.
There's probably a situation where someone can be an asshole and say something that is honest. It's just perhaps the way it's being used is to support something that may not be true.
Someone who is comported toward reality in a way that is fundamentally dishonest can still say truthful propositions, but it's more accidental. Like their relationship with existence is not honest. And if it just so happens they say something true, great. But they're not really trying to live an honest existence.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this dark theme of honesty in comedy, and I think that's what makes it so universally resonant with people. Because comedy, at its best, it acknowledges the reality of our being. So being is, for example, not universally kind or happy or comfortable or pleasurable. In fact, if you think about it, being is really full of a lot of horrible things. I was thinking about this the other day. So like we're comfortable in our houses. It's just the right temperature, and we've got just the right food that we like, and we've got just the right drinks if we're privileged enough to have all those things.
Yeah, of course.
If you go just a few miles up, and I mean straight up,
Yeah, like
you
this
die.
is. Yeah, this is. We're talking about for people that may be in a different part of the world. This is like North America. You're in the U.S.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you go straight up into the atmosphere.
Oh, you mean like straight up
Straight
from the
up,
ground?
yes.
Up. Okay, I was thinking like
Yeah,
harsh
no.
temperatures. I don't know why.
So, I
am stupid.
yeah, you are really
we
stupid.
both have
No.
to accept that.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm stupid too, which
Oh,
is why I
yes.
picked such a dumb metaphor.
Yeah.
But no, so I guess what I'm getting at is the band of comfort that we live in is tiny.
I mean, it goes to the whole scientific analysis of the habitable zone and
Yes.
and all that when it comes to planets and solar systems.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a very like the line between life and
Yeah.
not. As far as we can define that,
Yeah.
we could say things, but that line, that band that we seem to see, is very small.
Exactly,
Like, it only
exactly.
covers a tiny piece of what could be.
And I think that we have an even smaller band that covers happy life. So think about it this way.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
why this is one of the reasons that I think dark comedy is so honest. Let me grossly oversimplify things and say that imagine someone who's got all their desires, all their needs are met, right? So we're not talking about legitimate horrible suffering. So people in war-torn Syria, people in famine-plagued areas in Africa, people in despotic conditions, people trapped in abusive relationships here at home in America, people whose lives are on the line. That's not what I'm talking about right here. So imagine someone whose basic needs are met. They're not in danger. They're not hungry. They're clothed. They've got a decent relationship with society. They've met their basic animal needs. And now this person, now that they're set, now they go to look for happiness. And they find the little narrow sliver of existence that they like. And when you think about it, the stuff that you like is such a tiny fraction of existence.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I like coffee.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, of the trillions of things that exist, I've picked out like a few hundred or maybe a few thousand, like coffee, ham, cheese, warmth. Like of the
I would
trillion, yeah.
make sure to note most of those are food,
Yes, that's true.
which I don't think
Yeah.
there's anything wrong in that.
Yeah. No, but it is. It's true. So you've got someone who's comfortable and they go looking for happiness. I think what you find is there is always a vastly, vastly larger number of ways you can be miserable than happy.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. It's like I got told this thing. I think I looked up something. I can't remember, but there was something that said that like for your memories, negative ones for whatever analysis they used in this. Let's be speculative here. Our negative memories are 3 times as powerful
Yeah.
as positive ones.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people, when they think, or they're just drifting off into thought
Exactly,
about
yeah.
what was. A lot of times it's on the bad notes.
Mm-hmm.
I, on the other hand, I'm super optimistic.
Because you're an idiot.
Yeah, because I'm super idiot. So like I don't have as much problems with that.
Yeah.
But then when I go to think about it, I mean, I'm like everyone else. I've had cruddy moments in my
Yeah.
life. But yeah, it's so easy for those to just like fuel and create
Yeah.
who you are in that same instance.
And so
Yeah.
for reasons like that, for reasons like we're generally predisposed to dwell on negative things.
Yeah,
and
I would-
remember
I-
negative things.
I would agree.
Yeah.
It seems that's the case.
And even if you're not dwelling on negative things, even if you find a moment of pure bliss, it's
Yeah.
so easy to get knocked off
Yeah,
that
it's
little
so
pedestal.
easy just
Like,
to not accept, not appreciate it.
yeah, you wake up and you have a perfect morning, great breakfast, wonderful cup of coffee. You step outside,
Yeah.
and you drop your goddamn keys, and now you're mad.
And they're in the
Yeah,
snow.
They're in the snow.
You don't have gloves
you don't have
on.
gloves.
The whole day is ruined.
Exactly.
Like,
Or you
fuck
get-
this.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really easy to knock us out of that tiny band of
Yeah.
pure happiness. And the point in all this is not so much to ramble about how awful everything is.
No.
The point is that reality has a pretty big bias towards things not going our way.
Yeah.
We have to fight for things to go our way. But comedy honestly acknowledges that reality is not set up to be our best friend.
And honestly, being honest through comedy, I would say for me personally, is a good tool to allow me to just, process things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it helps you. Now, I don't know how to analyze humor itself
Yeah.
or funniness, but comedy, I agree with you. It helps you deal with the travails of reality. So, I mean, comedians, good ones, make light of the fact that we're going to die or that we're
gonna die.
yeah. They make light of it.
Yeah.
Or the fact that we're frustrated, that
Yeah.
we're ignorant, that we're lonely, that we screw ourselves over.
Yeah.
Good comedians highlight all that gloom and doom, but they do it in a way that somehow is funny.
Yeah, it makes it almost okay.
Exactly.
There's like a whole strand of jokes that pull the seriousness out of it.
Yeah, it's almost like a reconciliation with reality.
Yeah.
Like we're living a happy life, not thinking about how dumb and frustrated and ignorant we are and how we're going to die and how, oh, I got a new cat today and that's great. And we're not thinking about how 13 years from now, this is going to be a tragedy.
Yeah.
Like, we're living in the moment. Comedy comes along and it pulls out the unfortunate truth, let's say, but it uses humor to reconcile us with that truth. And so that's another aspect where comedy and honesty intertwine, because it reconciles you to the reality of existence so you can live a much more honest life and face all of existence, not just desperately try to cling to the fun, happy parts and pretend like the other parts, aren't there.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, and this is my last thought on this, but fundamentally, I think that comedy, when pursued with an honest spirit, results in existential strength. And I get criticized sometimes by some friends for using the word existential too often, which I do. But
I'm not one of those friends.
Yeah, no.
Because we're not friends.
We're not friends.
No.
But what I mean by existential is relating to my own most being. It's my core sense of self-understanding and my existence. So existential questions are not questions like, what do I want to have for dinner tonight? Or what's my favorite song? Or how tall am I? Like, all those are questions about me. But existential questions, as I see it, are questions like, well, what is the fundamental nature of my being? How do I exist in the world? How should I exist in the world? What the hell am I going to do about these other people that I have to exist alongside? Those are hard questions. And I think that comedy helps us accept the totality of that situation, including the bad parts.
Yeah.
And so it helps us, if we learn the right lessons from comedy, it helps us live a more honest life. And so Yeah, that's kind of my close. I don't really have any more notes per se, but that's what I've got on comedy and honesty. I think fundamentally it rehabilitates our relationship with existence because it highlights all the parts that we might rather not dwell on, but it does them in a lighthearted way. So we're able to laugh at it, and then after we've had a good laugh, it doesn't seem so scary anymore. I really do think that if you can laugh about something in life, you have robbed its power to destroy you.
Yes.
That's why I try to laugh at things like my own suffering, the times in life where I've made a fool of myself, which is frequent, embarrassing things that have happened to me or that I have done. If you can tell a story, and this is true from my experience firsthand, if I can tell a story about something embarrassing that I did, I notice that the embarrassing part of it kind of evaporates
Yeah.
and I'm left with the lesson. So I think that there's something in its own way. I think that there's something really good about that. Comedy rehabilitates you towards reality. It kind of sweeps away the power of the negative emotion
Yeah,
that could come about from stuff like
it
that.
almost lets it resolve, which is weird because comedy has a lot of comedy has this, a lot of jokes have a certain stress they put on, like you do in music and stuff, you put this like thing where you're anticipating something and then it's the other thing.
Yeah.
But comedy has that, but I think it also has the ability to remove that from just like your mundane things of your life or something that's stupid that happened.
Yeah.
Or something you were stupid to do or something, like that.
Yeah.
That's got that negative effect to bring up a joke, to just do that. And then especially to do that with people as social animals.
Exactly.
Is, giving the small air to, like, if you've got people around you that are just assholes. So
Yeah.
as soon as you start doing something like that, they make it worse. But typically it tends to pull that out of it. So now it's, instead of it being negative, now it's just neutral. It's like almost just a memory. It's like that happened. I can try to do this about it.
Yeah.
But obviously it's okay now.
Yeah. And now I know that there are a lot of comedians who make what, and I hate this phrase, politically incorrect, but I'll use it because I can't think of something better. There are a lot of comedians who will make politically incorrect jokes. And I think that the right response is to be okay with that, as long as it's done in the same spirit of loving teasing. The kind of, we're all in the trenches of existence together, and hey, it's a mess. But that's different from, and we were talking about this a little while ago, it's why that's why bigots don't make good comedians. I guess you could think of it that way. Because if you get someone who's like a stark raving mad bigot and you put them up on stage, they can't tell jokes because the actual bitterness and spite very quickly bleeds out.
Yeah.
And people realize, like, oh, this isn't funny. This is just someone on stage who's an asshole.
Yeah. I would argue that if the audience is of the same like mind, it could be funny.
They might laugh at it.
But they're almost all, it could turn into something else.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that outside observers who see that, I think what they see is an asshole on stage and an auditorium full of other assholes. I think that pathological people can make each other laugh over pathological things.
Okay.
But of course, I think that there's no honesty in that kind of mean-spirited comedy. Because, I mean, the other thing is, reality might be embarrassing, harsh, unforgiving, unfair, and cruel, but it's not mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not... So, jokes about how, cosmically fucked up reality is, like, that's funny. But jokes where you're just trying to pick on someone and there's no underlying theme of, at the end of the day, we're all in it together and etc.
There's nothing to pull you back out of the...
Exactly. You're just being an ass. You're just being mean for the sake of being mean. And so... yeah, I know I kind of rambled and got off topic there, but yeah, so that about sums up what I think about comedy and honesty. I mean, I might be wrong. I'm certainly always eager to hear counter arguments.
Yeah.
probably am wrong about quite a few things.
I feel like, honestly, with a lot of this, the more we talk about it, the more I realize we could do much more into this. Because
Oh,
there's so
yeah.
many little venues and little veins of
Yeah.
information I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It's too much for this, though.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to get off topic really quickly. I already
mean,
probably did.
You know, me too. The bottom line for me, I guess, is that we can always do another episode on other forms of comedy and honesty.
Yeah, because, yeah.
yeah, if I could end with one little thing on my side, it would just be that I think that one of the most redeeming aspects about the human species is comedy. The fact that we're self-aware would be unbearable and barbaric if it weren't for the fact that we could laugh at it.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, God, self-awareness is a really bad deal. Like, you know, I don't ever see a dog with 1,000-yard stare, like just thinking about all the terrible things it's done and how it's gonna die sooner than it would like, and how all of its efforts will be forgotten in time. And the one time it caught that bird, no one's gonna remember that time. You know, it's gonna pass in history like so much else.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see that in other animals.
No, it's not common. And even if it was, it'd be hard to notice, I would
Yeah,
say. 'Cause
that's
it's hard to
true.
communicate. But I would argue that it's more unlikely. I think as people, we with the capability of thought and consciousness and all
Yeah.
that we have, that allows us to more easily see from other perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's inherently what causes that. And
Yeah.
without comedy, you literally have to either have no emotion or every single piece of it. You know, comedy is just another piece of what makes us people.
There is something, now that you say that, it makes me think about this. There is something that seems kind of evening,
Yeah.
like leveling about humor.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
I think I could see that.
imagine you start dating someone and you've been dating for like 2 weeks and you're still in that like bubbly, ridiculous phase.
Yeah.
And someone cracks a joke that brings you down a few levels. That's kind of a leveling thing. It's not necessarily bad. It's like, you know, hey, I get it. You're really
remember,
happy.
it's like a joke that lets you remember where you are.
Yeah, it's like, I get it, you're really happy, but the rest of us are miserable, so if you could please keep that nonsense to yourself. And, you know, people
Yeah.
laugh about it and you kind of level out.
exactly.
But it works the other way around. You know, as someone who suffers from depression and anxiety,
It brings them up.
If I'm anxious and or depressed and someone cracks a joke, it levels me out the opposite way. That's why one of the things I like to do when I'm feeling anxious or depressed is make jokes about what I'm feeling anxious or depressed about, because it kind of pulls it back up towards that middle
Yeah.
spectrum where everything's just a fact.
I think it can give a lot of people a good sense of unity
That too.
as well.
Yeah.
And I think that equally helps pull you out, because then it's like your situation isn't as like unique and unbearable.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, people are here.
Yeah. If there's one redeeming aspect to our species, it's that we can laugh. And if there's one thing that I hope people learn how to do, it's laugh at themselves.
Yeah.
Just because if you can, like I said, anything that you can laugh at, you've robbed its power to destroy you. Except bullets. Bullets can still destroy you, regardless of how funny they might look at first. You know?
I would argue that gorillas.
Yeah,
there's
that's
a couple
true.
of things.
Fires, I guess, now that I
Yeah,
think
I
about
laugh at fire all the time.
it. You do, but it can still
I'm not entirely sure you're correct.
destroy you.
I'm pretty sure I've got a good grip on that.
But yeah, so the point is, rambling aside, that
As easy as it is to do.
there is something profoundly healing about comedy, and life is stacked against us enough as it is. So the more we can laugh at the worst parts of it, the stronger we are and the better equipped we are to, when we're done laughing, roll our sleeves up and go about the work of making things a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I'm not one for optimism, but if there is anything optimistic about the idea of comedy and honesty, I think it's that.
Yeah. Especially when done right.
Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing. I think good comedy, even when it comes across as mean, like angry ranting or cynical quips and sarcasm, good comedy fundamentally builds people in general up.
Yeah.
It might be aimed at mocking an unfair system. So, I think that good comedians will mock unjust systems and unfair systems. John Oliver had, one of his big things that he does, and I think he's hilarious, is he tackles systems and institutions and businesses that are thoroughly corrupt or partially corrupt. Few things in life are thoroughly corrupt. Some are, but few. But John Oliver goes after corrupt systems, and he tries to raise people up and make us better able to tackle them and solve them through comedy. And I think that's another whole other issue to get.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing. Yeah, I think we're reached the end of our time.
Yeah, I'm bored with this now.
Yeah, we're done. Screw this.
Yeah.
God.
So,
let's move on.
as always, thank you for joining us here at Dubitandum.
That thing that he said.
Yes, I don't even know.
Dubitandum.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm like pronouncing it right.
I don't know. Probably. I mean, closer than I would have. I'm pretty dumb.
Doesn't matter. But thank you for joining us here at Dubitandum. We would love to hear from you, either in terms of constructive criticism or comments. If you've got any disagreements with what we said, by all means, please submit that, because that's how we grow. Is person A says something that's totally ignorant and wrong, and person B says something that's only marginally less ignorant and wrong. And so person A learns from that, and then person C says something that's just totally off base. And then A and B gang up on them. And so
beat them.
Yeah, from this act of
verbally.
kind of we're wrenching our way up.
Yeah.
So if you've got any
On
thoughts,
the corpses of others.
yes. So if you've got any thoughts, questions, comments, criticisms that are constructive and politely laid out, by all means submit them. Same thing with recommendations on topics you'd like to see us cover.
Oh, and reading material, anything you want to bring into the conversation. I would even argue if you got suggestions on how we're doing this on like the tech side of things, and, whatever. I mean,
exactly.
We'll take anything into consideration to make this
take anything
more
we can
fruitful,
because we're really poor and really bad.
Really
at this.
bad. Yeah.
So by all means,
skill level 0.
But thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you. Join us again next time. We will be going over a top secret topic.
Oh, yes. We're not even going to tell you what
That's
it is.
actually not true. We're going to go over whether or not logic exists.
Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is super top secret.
Super top
this is something you may only get one chance to hear this.
Definitely.
We're going to get pulled off the air.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much, folks. Have a nice day.
All right.